Right, so I'm Jo. I've known Hannah for many, many years. I've always been musical, I've always been interested in music, and I've spent 20 years as a music teacher, which I don't do anymore, but I still love music.
So, can you tell me, my lovely friend Jo, what got you started in music? Because I met you when we were 13, so about 10 years ago. But you were still big into music by then, so tell me your journey, because I don't even know your journey up until then.
So the story goes, I don't remember it obviously, but the story goes that on my christening day, apparently I was wrinkling my face up for a really good scream, a really good cry, and in the church the choir started singing, and I stopped and I was quiet and I listened. So my mum and dad said from that moment on that they thought I would probably be musical, but I don't know if it's just a bit of an old wives' tale or whatever. But my grandparents were musical on my dad's side, and my dad plays the church organ, and so there's music in the family anyway.
So what was your first instrument? What and when did you start, and how did you start?
So I started piano lessons when I was 7. Because I was doing my mum and dad's head in. We had a piano in the house. It used to belong to a great aunt. No, was it a great aunt? Yeah, I think so. It used to belong to a great aunt, and she was a concert pianist, and it was her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was her rehearsal piano. And we had it in the house, and I used to sit and I used to tell stories on the piano with giants on the bottom end of the piano and with fairies at the top end of the piano.
Yeah.
And I used to tell these stories, and I would thump away on the bottom and I'd twinkle away at the top. And I think I just did my mum and dad's head in. I remember we had this yellow book. I can't even remember what it's called, but it had music in it and pictures. And I used to look at the pictures and tell stories with the pictures and pretend I was reading the music, and I used to think I was reading. But obviously I was just making a horrible noise. So at 7 years old, my mum and dad sent me off for piano lessons, and that's where it started.
So after piano, what was your next instrument then?
So we learnt the recorder in school. We all did. It was a whole class thing where you would...
Was I there?
No, it was
this was primary, yes.
Primary school,
primary.
So when I lived in Gateshead. And it was just one of those things that we all did in the class, and I did all right at it. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't till many years later I was part of the recorder club at Lindisfarne Middle School in Alnwick, and then obviously I started to learn the clarinet. I had to think there. And it wasn't till then, and I've actually got it, this is my first ever recorder. This is it from all those years ago. And obviously the way we should play it is like we would play
a whistle.
A whistle or a flute or a clarinet, and your hands would go that way. But
so it's the left hand above the right hand.
Yeah.
Is the point.
But I'd learned to play it the other way around.
So that's your left
hand on
left
the bottom,
hand below, and your right hand at the top.
And because there was a massive group of us all learn at the same time, I suppose maybe the teacher hadn't noticed and didn't correct me, and I mean I was quite proficient at it. I mean I just twiddled the bottom so I could get my little finger on. Ooh. But it wasn't
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, but it wasn't till I had to go on a tenor recorder, and I thought I can't play that the wrong way around, because I couldn't get my finger on the key because it was too big. So yeah, I had to sort of completely reteach myself the fingering for that. And actually now, I mean, that's the way I play it now. If I tried to play it that way, I cannot do it anymore. Admittedly, a class full of young children playing the recorder is painful. Actually, a class full of older children playing the recorder is also quite painful. But actually it's a really underrated instrument.
It is.
Because when it's played properly, it is actually beautiful.
And at the end of the day, it's a Baroque instrument, isn't it? You know. And I've got a friend who plays, well, I think she's got a descant and a tenor. And I think she plays a tenor more, but she plays proper Baroque music with it, you know, with a friend who plays piano. And I've not heard it, but I can imagine it's beautiful because she's
Is it not a recorder that's used in Carl Jenkins' Addie Amos? I'm pretty sure it is.
I think it might be, yes.
Going back to what we were saying on fingering before, So the descant fingering was like a flute or a penny whistle, something like that. The treble fingering is more like a clarinet.
Right.
So because that with your 3 fingers on is a C, isn't it? Yes,
Yes,
it
I
is.
think
Yeah.
so. It's been so long since I've played it.
Yeah. Whereas 3 fingers on with that one is a G.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
and that's what we mean about fingering, isn't it? It's about, and that's why people can pick up one instrument after playing another, because if the fingering is similar, so that 3 fingers down is a C on one instrument and 3 fingers down on another instrument is also a C, you're already halfway to playing it. And if it's already then a wind instrument, even if it's slightly different in how you blow, whether it's a reed, whether you're working more on is it embouchure?
embouchure, yeah.
Sort of, I'm thinking like an oboe, obviously, where you've got a lot more. Your technique on embouchure, I think, is a lot more.
Well, it's a double reed,
Is it more important? But then that suggests it isn't as important on a clarinet, and I don't mean that. It's,
But
it's
no,
different.
it's different. It's different.
Yes.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Excellent. So, what was your next instrument after that? Because you are the epitome of multi instrumentalists.
Jack of all trades, master of none, I think most
Not
people
at all.
like to say. So my next one was a clarinet. I remember we'd been sorting stuff in the loft, and it had come out of the loft. My dad used to play it when he was younger. And I said, I want to learn, I want to do it, I want to play. And my mum and dad said, well, if you tidy your bedroom,
the usual,
then you can have this clarinet. So I tidied my bedroom and the living room and the kitchen, and because I wanted this clarinet. So I started clarinet lessons at the middle school.
So what age were you then? Middle school? 9 to 13, isn't it?
Yeah, so 11.
Great.
So I think I was 11.
So you've been playing piano by then for 4 years?
Yeah.
So had you been doing grades on piano, sort of progressing like that?
Yeah, but I don't know what grade
That's okay.
I was up to by that point. And I remember I turned up for my first ever clarinet lesson, and he looked at my clarinet, and it was a beautiful instrument, but it was old and it probably needed a bit of work. But it was a wooden Selma clarinet.
You're telling me that.
And he looked at it and he said, "Well, you'll never get a sound out of this."
It beggars belief that.
So we did have a few problems with this teacher. I did progress quite quickly, I think. So I missed out grade 1 and grade 2, and I went straight on to grade 3. And then I went up with, I'm sure it was with Wendy and Fiona, maybe. We went up to the high school band. We were still in middle school, but we walk over to play in the high school band.
Lovely.
Yeah, and I remember practicing so hard at home because Mrs. Wilcox will remember Mrs. Wilcox.
I love Mrs. Wilcox.
She would randomly pick people just to play something. Have you practiced it? Can you play it? Play it. And I didn't want to be the youngest person in the band and not be able to play it. I wanted to know that if she picked on me, I could do it.
She didn't pick on you though, was it? I mean,
no, I mean, I don't mean like
picking on her, but if she picked you,
if she picked me, I wanted to be able to play it.
Yeah.
So I joined the high school band then, and then from there, she had an alto saxophone in the school, and apparently it was lent to the school by somebody, and they'd said that when it's not being used, they wanted it back. So the person that had been playing it had stopped using it and had given it back to the school, and she gave me the saxophone and said, "Play it." I don't want to give it back, we need to keep it in school, play it. I said, "Well, I don't really want to play it." She said, "No, I need you to play it." So I kind of taught myself a little bit, and then by this time I'd changed clarinet teachers because that was a whole other story. I would turn up for my clarinet lesson and I was very shy and very quiet, and I was very and I remember I put my clarinet together and I would sit with it on my knee waiting for him to start my lesson, and then I would sort of blow through it very timidly, not make a noise, but just blow the air through it just to warm it up a little bit, and then I'd put it back down. And eventually I plucked up the courage to say, "Are you going to teach me something or not?" And he said, "I don't see the point, you'll never pass your grade 5.
Can you tell us what grade you have passed, please? You don't have to if you don't want to.
No. I got my grade 7 on the piano. I was working on my grade 8, but I just lost the will and ran out of time. And a similar story with the clarinet. I was actually working on my grade 7 when I stopped, but I got a new teacher, and he was great. And I remember my old teacher, he always used to say, "Don't blast, Joe, you're blasting, don't blast," and to play quieter. And when I got to my new teacher, and he would say, "Do you know what those dynamic markings mean?" I was saying, "Yes, it's forte, it means it's loud." And he said, "So you need to play loud." I went, "But I am playing loud." "No, you're not." And I think the last teacher had kind of drummed into me that I was blast, blast, blast. So I'm just a timid, quiet little player, and it took a long time to try and...
That is so sad that... And this is what upsets me the most in private teaching particularly, that, you know, just the wrong tutor for the wrong student can make the difference between a maestro and somebody who would be incredible at their chosen instrument just never taking it up simply because of one bad experience. And I want to go back to those people and shake them by the shoulders and say, think about what you're saying, you know. I mean, the stories I hear.
I mean, even after the event, somebody was doing their GCSE performance, and they asked me, who was in sixth form at the time, if I could play the other part for our ensemble performance. And she asked if I would go to a clarinet lesson and play it through with the teacher. And I hadn't seen him for about 3 years at this point.
Oh, is this your old teacher?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I went to my lesson, and he actually said, "Right, Joanne, this is an A to B. This is over the break. Can you do that yet?"
Goodness me. Going back to the, I think it was alto clarinet, alto sax.
Yes.
And the alto sax is, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the same fingering as a clarinet?
No.
No, it is different. It is different fingering. Then.
Yeah. So.
But they are quite similar instruments in some respects.
Yeah. So that's
it's more of a natural progression than perhaps going from clarinet to banjo.
Yes. Yeah. So they're both single reed instruments. So it's the same. Similar technique to playing. What I found was I played the saxophone very like clarinet for a lot of years. I played the alto saxophone, and I played it, I guess, like clarinet. And it wasn't till many years later, with the formation of the Alnwick Playhouse Concert Band, and I was one of the founder members in that, and they had a baritone saxophone.
Which is the next tone down.
No.
2 down. 3 down.
Yeah.
17 down.
It's the biggest. It's got the loop, and it's a proper. It's a cracking instrument. It's just an amazing sound. And I struggled with it to begin with.
Understandable.
And I've forgotten who it was that said, it might have been Sue. It doesn't matter. It's probably not important. But that said to me, "You're playing it like a clarinet. You need to play it like a saxophone." And that kind of.
That was enough for your mind to think, clunk, this is a saxophone I'm playing.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, how just... And this is what I love, and it's not that I hate it, but this is what I love, that you can get one person saying one little thing to you, which is it's not deep, it's not meaningful, it was one comment that she's made, but that's been enough for you to go, clunk, the penny's dropped and it's moved on. And yet similarly, you have had other comments made that are so derogatory that you've remembered them, and thank goodness you were kind of 2 fingers up to it. Rather than taking it in personally, although obviously, as you've said, as a timid little child, it did affect you a little bit.
Well, it did, but I think I was really fortunate growing up where I grew up with the people that I grew up around. Alnwick was, probably still is, but obviously I'm not there, such a musical place to grow up, and there were a lot of really supportive people, and big shout outs to the likes of Norman Luke and Ray Thompson for the new musical theatre group, Ray obviously with the big band, Ray Thompson Big Band, that I got involved with, just so many people that have supported us. I mean, I remember once George Dodds, love you George, called him Grandad George, and we were playing for a show, and that was what I did enjoy about playing the saxophone. It meant I could double up on instruments then, because a lot of the show music, it'll be like reed 1, reed 2, reed 3, so you have to be able to play clarinet, flute, saxophone. You have to be able to play them all to play these parts. So because I could play 2 instruments, I could now play in these pit bands for the shows, which I really enjoyed doing. And I remember playing for Crazy for You, and there was a baritone sax part that was like a do 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 do. I can't remember how it went now, but it was great. And I just remember George, just as I was about to play, he went, "Go on, play it, kid."
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, loved it.
All right, Jo, then. So let's talk about my favourite topic, other than me, other than ferrets, which is singing. So I know you were in the choir because I was in there with you. So tell me a little bit.
Always been in the school choirs. Always been in the school choirs. I love singing. I've never really been confident enough to be a soloist or anything like that. I've never thought that I was good enough, which is probably silly, but then that's just confidence and self-esteem, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I was
in the good singing teacher if you want one to help you with confidence.
I know a good singing teacher too. What's her name again?
Don't know.
Hannah somebody.
No, don't know.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was in the middle school choir, and then when I went up to the high school, I joined the high school choir. I always sang the alto lines because 2 reasons. Soprano lines are too high for me.
That's always a good reason.
Yeah, officially I think I'm a mezzo-soprano as opposed to an alto, but the soprano lines were too high for me. But also because I found the soprano lines really quite boring. I liked singing the alto line, and yes, sometimes the alto line's boring because it's like the same note all the way along, da 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 da. But I like the fact that it was doing a harmony and it was doing something different.
But it's always against the melody, isn't it? So you're not doing the melody.
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed. I really enjoyed that. Even down to going to church at Christmas time and singing the alto line and the carols, even if nobody else is around me. I'll find that my dad's singing bass and I'm singing alto, and then it's just nice. It's just nice to be able to, go off on a tangent a bit. And I loved my time in the high school choir. I really had a good time there. It was a big choir, and it was a good sound.
It was a very well known choir.
Yeah.
Again, that's Aileen Wilcox's time under her.
Yeah, and credit to Aileen Wilcox, cracking choir, absolute cracking choir. I remember when we sang in Notre Dame. And we sang in Notre Dame on Easter Sunday. I mean, how many school choirs can say they've done that? And
we were invited, I seem to remember, to do that.
I think so.
And we actually sang part of, we sang the Alleluia chorus, I seem to remember.
We did, we sang the Alleluia chorus in Notre Dame, and when those sopranos hit the top A's, aren't they?
That was me, I think.
That would be you.
Yeah, it was the top soprano.
Yeah. Those top A's and just...
It floated, didn't it? Even I can feel the goosebumps even now.
Yeah, it was amazing, absolutely amazing. But it was more than just being in Notre Dame and singing in Notre Dame. It was the whole thing that came with it. So on the bus, how many school bus trips are singing in 4-part harmony? You know, I mean, that's what it did for us. That time sitting on the steps of Sacré-Cœur.
I was about to bring that up. Can you tell us about Sacré-Cœur rather than me telling the story? You tell it.
So we'd been given, I guess, the evening off. We were told we could go and wander and look. It was still light.
I think Aileen had gone into Sacré-Cœur to have a look around.
Yeah. So the school trips are very different now to how school trips were back then.
Yes.
I'm going to be really honest. The things probably happened on that trip that would never happen now, but we all had a great time and we all came home alive, so it's fine. But this one time, we were given an hour, 2 hour, whatever, to just go and look around Sacré-Cœur, and there was the markets and there were caricaturists drawing and all of that sort of stuff. And we had some free time to go and have a look around, and meanwhile the teachers had gone into Sacré-Cœur to have a little look around inside. And it was one of those things, I guess we all kind of went off and had a little wander, but we all kind of found each other again, and we ended up sitting on the steps of Sacre-Cœur. And then we ended up singing in 4-part harmony on the steps of Sacre-Cœur, and we ended up getting our own audience stand and watching us. And I do believe somebody said the music teacher had been inside Sacre-Cœur going, I hope that's not my choir. It was her choir.
What do you mean she hopes it wasn't her choir?
I don't know, I don't know.
Oh, bless her.
But yeah.
I seem to remember, was it Geffrin, who gave the note for some of them. I remember one moment in time, because that was our signature tune, wasn't it?
That was like our anthem, that was our,
yes.
yeah.
And it swelled, again, I'm getting goosebumps, but I seem to remember. And what I loved about standing on those steps, and I can still remember, I wouldn't say clearly as day, but I can remember it still very well, was the fact that we were all mixed up, you know. And obviously when we were a very strict choir, and she'd really drilled into us, and when we went on stage, we went on smoothly. There was no fumbling, there was no changing places. You went on in an order, and we used to practice going on and coming off.
But even down to our singing, I remember her, because apparently I was singing with my head to one side slightly, and she made me put my head back up because we all had to be
looking the same. Yeah. And it was marvellous. But what I loved about Sacre-Cœur on the steps was that we were all just mixed together. And it was lovely, because I think in a way it's a testament to our musicianship as a group then, that we were able to do that, and we knew the pieces so well that I think the few who, if there was a piece you weren't as sure on, you could shuffle over to a mate who was in the same section as you. But on the whole, we just did it, and I remember that very clearly, and with a thrill, I'll be honest. And in a way, I think I remember the Sacre-Cœur steps slightly clearer than I fully remember Notre Dame.
I mean,
it sounds 15.
14, 15, yeah. I don't remember so much the details, I remember more the feeling. But then isn't that what music does for us?
Well, exactly, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, other choirs you've been in then? With me.
With you?
Or not with me?
No, actually, yeah, did a few years with Anakin District Choral Society, and I have to say I did enjoy it, because there was a certain amount of pride at being third generation, because my grandparents had been in there, and then my parents were in there, and I know my dad still tries to be involved where he can be, and then I was there as well, so it was like those 3 generations had been involved in it. And I liked it because it was a completely different style of music to what we'd done with the high school choir and obviously the middle school choir, because it was much more classically orientated, and it was, sort of...
more sacred music.
Yeah, much more sacred music. And but I really enjoyed that, and I got a chance to go to, I mean, that's the other thing music's done for me, I suppose, is the travel. We talked about Notre Dame. With Anik Choral Society, we went to Vienna. And that was great, going into Mozart's house in Vienna, and seeing his own handwritten copy of Ave Verum Corpus was just, there's that moment of like,
wow,
yeah, because we would sing it, and then there it was, which was amazing. I was involved with St Mary's Music Makers in Lesbury. Gillian Brunton was my piano teacher, amazing lady. And we went to Poland with her, and we went to Germany with her. A great time again. Anik Youth Orchestra, we went to Norway, to Anik Twin Town. So I've had so many opportunities through music. Really lucky.
So then, what else at this same time were you doing? Because I know you were pianoing, clarinetting, saxophoning, singing.
So then I heard about another club that was in school, because I'm the type that'll go to the opening of an envelope. No, I just liked being busy, and I liked being involved. And
there's nothing wrong with liking to go to the opening of an envelope. I'm somebody who'll sing at the opening of an envelope, So we're from the same mould.
Yeah. So yeah, Dr. Rob, who obviously we knew at the time as just our chemistry teacher. Obviously older and wiser, we realised that Tony Robb is the force that he is within the folk music circles, but he ran a folk club, and I remember I really wanted to be involved, but I didn't really play an instrument, because I didn't play the violin, and
Didn't play like the folky kind of instrument.
yeah, and he got me started on a penny whistle. And he told me how it worked, and I remember him sticking sellotape over one of the notes to get it in tune. So really fond memories actually playing with that folk club, and I loved playing the penny whistle. I think it took the best of the recorder, and it just, with fun music. I just really enjoyed it, and I just loved the whole folk music scene. Loved it.
So then, Joanne, tell us a little bit about the penny whistle, and your journey with your penny whistle, because I can see you've got quite a few of them there on the table, and compare it to us, or talk us through how it's similar to and how it's different to the recorder.
So I started with this one, which is just a bog standard tin whistle. Penny whistle, tin whistle, same thing. It's very similar to a recorder actually. It's got the 6 holes down the front. Recorder does have an additional one at the bottom. The recorder also has one on the back, which the penny whistle doesn't. So just to play higher, you just have to blow a bit harder. So if I... And that's all just by blowing a little bit higher. So...
Is the fingering the same?
Yeah. Ish, yeah, more or less. So I got myself a little collection of penny whistles, and I found then I preferred this one because it had a nicer sound. I thought
screechy.
But then I discovered
Sasato.
These beauties, Sasato, and they just have a beautiful sound. So I've got a Sasato in D, which is the normal kind of folky tune, and then I've got one in C, so I can play along with the pipes, Northumbrian pipes.
So Joe, play something for us on the penny whistle. I think it's also called the flageolet.
I do believe it is, yes. So I'll play a tune called Bamborough Castle.
Who wrote that one?
Me. So it's a tune called Bamborough Castle, which I wrote for Claire and Francis, who own Bamborough Castle. And because I played the Northumbrian small pipes at their wedding, and I wrote this tune for them.
Lovely.
So watch me make a mess.
It's alright, it's only going out to everybody in the world.
That's fine then.
Lovely.
That's the shortened version anyway, without the repeats in it, but there you go.
That was lovely, thanks Joe. So then, that takes us up to, I think, A level.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So I was just busy. I was playing in the North Northumberland Orchestra, Annick Youth Orchestra, Ray Thompson Big Band. I was playing for the shows.
And you still went to school as well.
And I still went to school as well. I still played in the school band, did the school choir. I was involved.
Absolutely immersed in music.
Yeah, that's just pretty much what I did. Day in, day out, that's just what I did. So when I went to go to university, I didn't have an A level in music, so I kind of thought I can't really do music at university because I don't have an A level. It wasn't really offered at school.
A-levels weren't.
Well, A levels were.
A-level.
A level music wasn't at the time. So I didn't have an A level in music, and I thought I can't really go and do music, but it was something that still really interests me. So I went and I did combine programs so that I could do little bits of this and little bits of that. So I did media studies as my major, and I thought that media studies went really well with music, but so many people went, oh, what a strange combination. And I don't get that. I do think they work well together, and having a degree in it, I still think they work well together.
Tell us how.
Sorry?
Tell us how they go together.
Well, I don't know. I think because it is about expressing yourself, whether you do it through radio or television or print media or music. It's about creativity, and it's about expressing yourself, and it's about producing ideas for people's enjoyment, mostly. So I did combine programs. I majored in media studies. I loved radio production and that side of things. And I did a bit of Spanish and a bit of history, but then my minor was in music, and I remember a lot of the modules I had to take were music education modules because that's just what they had. But I came out with it with a degree in media studies with music.
So what did you do with that degree then?
Well, initially not an awful lot, because I really enjoyed the radio production side of things, but you kind of needed a spark to do well in that, and I didn't have it, and I knew I didn't have it, and I knew I wasn't thick-skinned enough for work within the media, because I wasn't very good at rejection, and I know there's a lot of that going on. So I really didn't know what to do with myself. So I was still involved playing in bands and shows and singing in choirs and stuff once I left school and university, but the music then just became a hobby, and I started working in a hospital, and then I went from the hospital, I worked in a dental surgery, and I was a receptionist and a dental nurse. One day I thought things need to change, and I need to have a purpose, because no disrespect to any dental nurses out there, because just no disrespect at all, but it wasn't, at the time it wasn't for me. I needed something.
I think because music was flowing through you so much, it was you still needed more of an outlet than you were getting just in your off time.
So I looked at training to be a teacher, and I remember being unsure, do I want to do primary or do I want to do secondary? And I remember it being a really difficult decision, and I remember talking to Anne-Marie, I'm sure, may not even remember this conversation, but it was important to me. And I said I didn't know whether to do primary or secondary. And Anne-Marie said to me, do you love working with children or do you love your subject? And I said, well, I love my subject. And she said, well, then secondary's for you. And I thought, great.
What a wonderful way of putting it, because I never really made that distinction, but as you're saying it, I'm like, that's absolutely it, isn't it? Yeah, fantastic.
So I ended up at the University College of Ripon and York St John, as it was then. I know it's now just York St John, I think. Ripon's not there anymore. But and I did a PGCE, so it was a 1-year course, and I enjoyed it. It was hard work, but I enjoyed it. And I was really very fortunate. I got the first job I applied for, the first interview I got. And I started working as a secondary school music teacher in Wallsend.
And so then really these past, to sort of, I mean, feel free to put in as much or as little detail of the different schools, but you've worked for many, many years. I mean, you said at the beginning it was about 20 years on and off. Well, not on and off, just 20 years straight.
20 years. 20 years I've been a secondary school music teacher. I always worked full time until I had my children. And then with having twins at home, full time just seemed just a bit too much to bite off, as well as that, because music in schools is it's not one of those subjects you can just go in, teach, mark your books, go home. Yeah, music's one of those subjects where you're expected to put on shows, Christmas concerts, music for open evenings, you're doing clubs, there's always something going on. And I have to say, in my departments, the room was always open. And it was open to whatever kids wanted to come in. You know, the expectation was there was an interest in music. And they practiced music, they played music, they listened to music. I like to think I created a safe place for them. And I know for the years, some of the students I've had through my department, music was the place that they felt they could come to.
And looking back, just to butt in, looking back, that's exactly what Aileen Wilcox had created for us, and all of our spare sort of lunch times and breaks when we were in that part of the school, it was split campus, we were in the music room. And we were doing the same, you know, we might be chatting about other subjects, but it would always come back to music. There was always a piano there, somebody would come in, you could always just sit and play the piano, and it was always open, exactly the same way. So you sort of either deliberately or unconsciously...
I think unconsciously, I think it was just did I see a need? I don't know if I saw the need or if I just knew it was there, I don't know, but... So yeah, I went back working part-time after I had the children, and then I ended up full-time again, and then it just got a bit too much, because obviously you've got the children, and then my mum was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and my brother had his brain hemorrhage, and working full-time on top of all of this was just too much, so I went back to part-time after that. And then that's where I finished my teaching. Part-time, working part-time. I still work in schools and I still work with young people, and I think I've found what I'm passionate about now with my professional life. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yes, I think so. Because you've go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, I've loved my years teaching music, and I've loved seeing how kids have come on and how they've developed, but I've always had that imposter syndrome where I see other music teachers around me and I think they're better than I am, which I know is ridiculous. I know it is, but
that is so interesting, because I know you so well and I didn't know that, and for you to say that, given your immersion and your qualifications through experience in music, to hear you say that is actually, it's quite emotional for me. I'll be perfectly honest, I'm quite stunned by it, I'm quite upset by it, but I'm also very understanding of it, because I live with imposter syndrome, and I think it's something of all creative people in a way, because and I'm sure it is of other places as well, but I think for us creatives, it is all about subjectivity, and that's where the imposter syndrome really can eat away at you. But you've also been like head of department of music, and you know, you've been pretty much up there as well.
Yeah, and you know when we've put on shows and concerts and what have you, they've been successful. You know, we've had kids involved, and we've had audiences come, and it's gone well. So, you know, I did all right. But I think I found my happy place now as far as professional, and it means I can kind of take back music now. For you? For me. I remember when I was training to be a teacher, our tutor at the college, our tutor at college, she was called Carol Garbett, and I remember her saying to us, to the group, music's a different subject to any other subject, and you have to be careful not to give everything of yourself away with music. You know, music can be so personal. You know, if you've got that particular piece of music that is particularly personal and special to you, don't feel like you have to share it. You don't have to share it. And I thought that was really good advice, but I do feel after all these years of teaching that it kind of wore away the love a little bit, because it came more about, as it is in teaching, it became more about data and budgets and progress and GCSE grades and coursework and marking books and planning, and it became about that rather than actually what I went into it for, which is music.
The love of the subject, yeah. And for me, that's one of the reasons why I am quite happy staying as a private tutor, and I have no wish to go into that sort of school setting, really, in one way or another. So it's wonderful to hear your journey, but you are still active in music, and actually what we've neglected to talk about is the TA and your Northumbrian pipes. So let's come back to that in a minute. Tell us a little bit about the TA, the Territorial Army, and what on
or
earth
the Army Reserves as they are now.
Oh, I'm so sorry, the Army Reserves.
Yeah.
And what the heck that has to do with your music journey?
I'd heard about it before, and it's one of those things, you know, when we were in school, I remember we got the band of the, was it the band of the Pegasus Regiment or something? Parachute Regiment, Pegasus, I don't know. We had a military band come into school and do workshops with us, and then do a joint concert with us. It was great. I really enjoyed it. But I always thought that military musicians were like us, in that we had a job, and then on a Tuesday night we went and played music with our friends, because I didn't realise that it was a job and that it was a role that I could have done. And with hindsight, maybe if I'd known that in high school, maybe that's the direction I might have gone in. But instead I was playing for a show, and I was talking to Ron Creasy, who at the time was the warrant officer in charge of the Fusilier band in Newcastle. And he said, come along, have a play. So I did. I went along and had a play, and I really enjoyed it.
What instrument did you go and play?
Tenor saxophone.
Right.
So that was me now, alto, tenor and baritone saxophone. So I played tenor saxophone, and I loved it for the same sort of reason that I loved singing alto, because the tenor saxophone, if ever you hear a good march, the tenor saxophone has all the counter melodies. So it's got all the fun bits to play. And I really enjoyed it, and I've had so many great experiences through. I did 10 years as part of the band of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers, and we did concerts and we did kind of community events, you know, sort of. But it was the bits that I was probably the proudest of were things like Remembrance Day. When we marched to the Cenotaph in Newcastle, and obviously Newcastle City Centre, Remembrance Sunday, it's a big deal, there's a lot of people there. And we'd play for the service, and then we would head the parade back through town. And there was always a great sense of pride being part of that. But again, I got such good experiences. I know I did a 2-week camp with the Band of the Blues and Royals in Windsor, which was great. I also, when I went with I think it was the Heavy Cavalry and Cambrai band from Catterick, I think they were at the time. I did a 2-week camp with them, and as part of that we went to London, and I remember I marched down the mall in London. With the band, yeah. My first ever go at wearing spurs, which I can tell you is really difficult to go downstairs in spurs.
Good God,
as
yes.
I learned. And we got to play for a garden party at Clarence's house, and Prince Charles came and spoke to us, and we had pims and canapes. It was very nice.
Darling.
Darling.
You know all the right people.
I know all the right
name dropping Prince Charles, Bamburgh Castle.
Yes.
I don't know any of these people.
Yeah, well,
so
yeah, probably less, what's the word? Prince Andrew, we met a couple of times too, but we'll perhaps better not mention him.
Eeky! Moving on. So there's one more instrument that we haven't mentioned at all here, and we can't leave without mentioning this. But I think it's been there all the way through, really.
Well, certainly since the TA.
Right, okay. So tell us what the instrument is, and tell us a little bit about your relationship with it, as it were.
So my final instrument that I learned was the Northumbrian small pipes. I I remember my dad was always really interested in learning to play the Northumbrian pipes, and one Christmas my mum bought him a set of Burley pipes, and he went off and got lessons, and it was a fella called Joe, is pretty much all I knew, and it was much later, obviously now that I know a lot more about pipes myself, my dad's teacher was Joe Hutton.
Goodness me.
So my dad learned from, you know, one of the best. So I was always interested because my dad did it, and I thought, you know, it's a traditional instrument and it would be nice to see the younger generation playing it and not just old men. And I was really interested in learning, but I didn't really know how to go about it. And then when I was in the TA, they had a spare set of pipes, they had a band piper, he said he would teach me, and that's where we started. The set I had from the band weren't particularly good, but yeah, and then I met Susan, and Susan, God love you Susan, sort of took me under her wing a bit and really did teach me.
Was that while you were in the TA you met Susan?
Yeah, we met through the TA, yeah. So at the moment, it's the pipes that I play. I don't really play much of the piano or the clarinet or the saxophone or much anymore. I'd like to get back to it, but at the minute, while children are young, life is too busy to fit it all in.
Yeah.
And maybe once they're a bit older and a bit more independent, I can start going back to playing in bands and things like that. But for now, it's the pipes that keep me busy. So I've been asked to play at Bamburgh Castle a few times recently, which was a great honour, a really great honour. I know when they first opened after lockdown, and I was asked if I could play, you know, for the castle opening up again. So I've played a couple of times up there, and I'm going back to play. So yeah, I'm going to go and play for the, what do you call it? For the beacons being lit for the Jubilee.
Right, okay,
so I'm going up to play while they light the beacons, and pipers all over the world, Commonwealth, wherever, they're all playing the same tune at about the same time.
Lovely.
And I know that's something that we've been involved in before for a Remembrance Day, wasn't it?
Day.
Yeah, it was to mark the 100 years at the end of World War One, wasn't it?
That's right.
And we all played at 6 o'clock in the morning. You and I, we played at Felton Church.
That's right, yeah, 6 o'clock in the morning.
6 o'clock in the morning, and we actually got an audience, didn't we?
Well, yeah, was it a couple of, I wouldn't say 30, but that was the afternoon, wasn't it?
No, I think you're probably right.
Was it 30 people?
It was about 20 to 30 people, yeah.
Goodness, that came at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that was, I mean, literally, that was on a November morning, wasn't it? That was that armistice? No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, gosh. And we've played together in a few other bands, played pipes together in a few other bands as well, with the Ottadini, doing a lot of friendly nights. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's where you're at now. And
that's where I'm at now.
I'm looking forward to seeing where you go after that. And for me, it's interesting that for all of this journey, a lot of it I knew, some of it I didn't know. And it's lovely to talk to you properly about it. But also, I've not actually been involved with you musically as much as I'd like to be. You know, we were in the same choirs, and we've been in the same sort of piping band. Not piping band, sorry.
Did you not play euphonium in the school band, Hannah?
I did play euphonium in the school band. I've forgotten that. Doop 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 doop. Sorry, yes.
Tequila.
Tequila. Oh, love it. Well, thank you so much, Joanne. It's been a pleasure and an honour, and I'm looking forward to being by your side for the next 30 or 40 years worth of music.
Yeah, for as long as you can put up with us.
Well,
yeah.
The other way. Okay, thanks, Jo.
You're very welcome.